Hello, Art of Homeownership community. How is it going? This is Danny Hirani. Hope you are all having an amazing morning or afternoon, depending on where you're at in the country. Today, thank you so much for joining us, by the way. Really appreciate you taking time out of your busy day to learn a little bit about some of the strategies that Art of Homeownership facilitates for your business, and also to just invest in yourself and invest in your business. Knowledge is the differentiator. Knowledge combined with implementation, let me put it that way, is a massive differentiator when it comes to enjoying and creating the success that you're capable of. We are planning to be joined today by Nick Krautter, who wrote the book, The Golden Handoff, which is specifically really guiding real estate and mortgage professionals on a path to what we frame up as succession planning. But really what it comes down to is building a business that is first scalable and then saleable. Nick, hey, how's it going, man?
I'm doing great. Let me just move this so I'm looking at the right screen here.
Oh, all good. I'm so glad you're able to join us today. Thank you for taking time out of your schedule.
Yeah, absolutely. Good to talk to you.
Absolutely. So I was just introducing you as the author of The Golden Handoff. So do you want to share a little bit about what that is and kind of what the team that's joined us today can expect?
Yeah, so The Golden Handoff is a book about how to buy and sell real estate agent businesses. So not the whole brokerage, but if you're an agent, you've been working for 10, 15, 20, 40 years, you've built up a book of business of all these clients that know you and trust you, and that's worth quite a bit of money. And so The Golden Handoff is all about how to sell your business when you want to retire. And if you're on the other side and you're growing your business, how to grow your database in your business by adopting the clients of other folks who are retiring and exiting the real estate business.
Absolutely. And Nick, as you know, succession planning and building a business that is saleable, right, that has consistent revenue that a future buyer can identify and place value into is really one of the foundations of the Art of Homeownership and something that we help our partners accomplish. So really excited to have you on today. So just to kick it off, why don't you just share with the team that's joined us, what you see as the primary steps to take and the mindset to have when you're considering that succession planning process.
Sure. I mean, I think, this is a great fit with the Art of Homeownership because it's all about providing value to clients and building a relationship over time. Not just a quick sale, turn and burn thing. It's a long-term relationship. So if you're looking to sell your business, the better job you can do staying in touch with your clients and having a strong relationship and maintaining those relationships, and also making sure you have the right contact information, emails, all that as people change jobs and move around, the more value it's going to have. Absolutely, the more value it's going to have. And think of it this way, when you sell your business, what you're really doing is you're referring all your clients to a new agent and you're endorsing them. So you're saying, hey, I'm retiring and Danny's going to take over and he's an amazing agent. I've known him for 10 years and he's got a great team and you're in really good hands. And at the end of the day, I tell people, you shouldn't ever sell your business to someone you wouldn't hire to help you buy or sell a house yourself. If you can look at that person and say, if I was going to sell my house and I wasn't an agent, this is who I'd hire, then that's probably the right person. And conversely, if you say, I don't know if I would hire this guy, you need to keep looking because you don't want to endorse someone you wouldn't work with yourself. And that's probably the easiest way to kind of say whether it's a good fit or not.
Excellent. Well, Nick, the Art of Homeownership succession planning process or philosophy applies to mortgage professionals as well.
Sure.
But ultimately what you just said is identical, right? It's about you're essentially, like you said, referring your business over to a new business owner. And that practitioner is going to take over the value that you've created, the trust that you've built with your clients, and then they're going to leverage that trust to build a revenue stream, right? A predictable revenue stream.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, it takes activity, right? It takes the work, right? You have to call people, show up. You have to host the client parties, do the classes, pop bys, make the calls, do the newsletters. So that new agent's doing all that work, right? They're doing the activities that turn into business. Because you know this and I know this, but there's no referral business where you just get to sit by the phone and wait for people to call you. You need to be in touch with people and engaged. And so the adopting agent is the person that's doing that, whether they're a contractor. Early on, one of my very first presentations, one of the guys that came ran a carpet installing and cleaning business. And, he said there's a ton of guys that have small little family businesses all over town that do what I do, but they're all kind of retiring and their kids don't want to take over. And so he was buying up all these little mom and pop shops that did carpet installation and cleaning. And it sounds like a small thing, but he was doing incredibly well with it because he was, he'd buy a business and then all of a sudden you'd have this whole section of town that like had the client list for that. And those are the people that would call him. And if you're a mortgage professional as well, the process of how you interact with your clients is very similar to a realtor. How you get paid is slightly different, and how you share that revenue is different. And in real estate, it's easy because you have referral fees. So obviously, both people need to be licensed, but you can use referral fees, and that keeps things incredibly simple and transparent. In the mortgage business, it's a little trickier, and I won't go into detail on that because I don't run a mortgage company, but I know enough, and I've talked to enough people to know that that model is different. They're employees, but if they're both at the same company, I believe that it's not difficult to pull something like this off and find a way to create a revenue share or profit share that would be equitable.
That's right, Nick. And being a co-creator of a mortgage company, I can speak to that. And you're absolutely right. It is absolutely possible, and in fact, encouraged to first build a team and then see that team over time really inheriting more of the responsibility. And
sure,
if you're doing it right, the team's inheriting more of the gross profile income, but the net income coming to you as the leader should be growing exponentially. So right. You might make fewer basis points on a transaction, and certainly post sale, if you negotiate a tail of revenue, which I would recommend that you do that, right? A tail of revenue that came from the sale of the business, you'll be receiving fewer basis points or percentage of the transaction per unit, but your overall income relative to your contribution of daily activity should be significantly higher than, when you were grinding in your business every day.
Sure. Yeah. It's same in my real estate business with my team. It's a smaller piece of a much bigger pie. And, if you think of it as a per hour thing, it's a pretty good deal.
Right.
If you set it up right and you build something with a lot of value, so other people can come in and have success quicker and more predictably working with you than if they just tried to recreate the wheel on their own.
So Nick, there's a couple of questions that our audience sent in ahead of the Art of Homeownership community sent some questions to us when they heard the topic that we were going to discuss today, because succession planning is one of those things that it's very aspirational. When you think about, especially if you've been in sales for a couple decades, like I have, and I'm not sure how long you've been in the business, Nick, but probably long enough to know that you don't want to be on the front line, taking bullets every single day the way you were, 10 years ago. So there's definitely an aspirational aspect to this, but it's also very overwhelming because the chain of events that takes you from that takes the average practitioner from where their business is today to a point where they can confidently sell that business and know that they've created value and they have something of value to sell. It's a long journey, and there's a lot of steps that go into it along the way. And most people, unfortunately, when they decide they want to, hang up their spurs, their referral relationships and their clients just melt into the ether. And they don't find a way to monetize that and create an annuity from all of the hard work that they've built. So the question's really related to three different categories of activity. So one is selling your business outright, right? So you kind of touched on that. Like if I'm ready to be done, and I just decided I want to sell my business, how do I identify what a good price for that is? What prep work do I need to do to sell it? And then what does the tail look like for that? If it's just a kind of a one-time event with a tail. Another in the mortgage practice, and I'm going to throw a couple things at you. We can kind of take them in series here. Most mortgage practices do the succession planning over a period of time. So instead of, marketing your business for sale, for X hundreds of thousands of millions of dollars, and somebody says, hey, I'll finance that and I'll buy it from you. It's an evolution where it's a succession plan that happens with identifying a business partner that will take a greater share of your business over time, at which point the senior partner can exit. So I'd like to talk a little bit about that. And then finally, if you wanted to orient yourself as a buyer of businesses, how would you approach that process? So what order would you like to tackle those in?
We'll go in order you gave them. So I'm a big advocate for not selling in one shot, because I don't think it's fair to either party. It's incredibly difficult to value a real estate business unless you're selling an entire brokerage where the owner is no longer the manager or the main producer. And in most cases, you're going to be one of the top producers, or at least the manager. In most cases, it's incredibly rare where you've built a team that's big enough where the owner of it is not the manager or one of the top producers, or both. And that's why I think the thing that makes the most sense is I do in the Golden Handoff. It's a 3-year kind of step down process where the first year you get a 30% referral, then 20, then 10 in subsequent years. And that's really because it's incredibly difficult to value an individual's real estate business. And then you don't know what's going to happen in the market. And so if you can make the payment based on production, it ends up becoming really, really simple what the value is. I can talk about the other ways to value a business, but I think that they're really, really not built for a real estate business. I taught a class for NAR on that, where I talked about my model versus kind of traditional business sale valuation, like a multiplier model. But again, the main hang up in real estate is how well will that business do if the top producer and the manager aren't there? Now, if you're running it and managing it, you're the top producer and you're kind of checked out, it might actually do better, right? If you hand it off to someone who wants to take bullets all day long and be on the front line 17 hours a day, like I was when I started, and like a lot of people are that, are able to build a team and be successful. I certainly don't want to do that now. So I don't advocate for a one-time sale. There's other issues with that. You don't know where the market's going. You don't know how strong the database really is until you start calling people in it. You don't really know. And then the other problem is, if the retiring agent has sold the business, there's no incentive for them to stick around and help you figure stuff out or fix problems. Not that you really need to rely on that. The handoff process is there to really help you learn who the people are in the database and make that transition as smooth as possible. But there are times where it can help win the deal. There was a business I took over where there was a couple of cases where I asked them to make a call because, they were $1 million deals in a time where that was a big deal. When the average sales price was probably $350 or $400, and I didn't want to mess around. I wanted to make sure that, I got a re-endorsement directly from that agent to that client because they had helped them buy a couple of properties, and that client sold $2 million properties and bought another one in the same year. So it was a big deal, especially at the time for my business. I think we did 24 or 30 million in sales that year. So, it was like 10% of our year.
Wow.
That one client. So it was worth it to have them make that call. And if for anyone that doesn't know, I'm in the Portland, Oregon market where during the recession, I started in 2006, and our average home price was probably 250 or 275. And then it went up to close to 400 and then dropped to about 200. And then it's fought its way back up close to 6 now. So I've been working that whole up, down, up, and we'll see where we go next. Let's talk. What was your second question?
Well, I think you're kind of moving right into it, which is to say that if a one-time sale is not the answer, which I completely agree with that. Now, what I will actually, I'm going to say I 90% agree with it. Where I can say that art of home ownership, if implemented properly, can actually give you the ability to do a one-time sale, because you really, the challenge that you've described, right? So you don't know where the market's going. You don't know the strength of the database. What I would translate that to, or what I hear when you say that, is that you're not confident in the predictability of revenue. And
Sure.
Because when you're buying a business, doesn't matter if you're buying a carpet installing business or a mortgage practice or a real estate practice, what you're buying is the future revenue potential. That's the only reason to spend the money, is to know, hey, I'm going to have a stream of income that's going to come at a multiple of what I'm spending over a period of time that I'm willing to engage in this business, which is a greater period of time than the seller is willing to engage in the business, or at a higher quality of engagement, to your point about the checked out owner. So in a very rare instance, you may be able, through a very well executed strategy where you've extracted yourself as the name brand, right? So it's not the Danny Hirani team, it's something else. And you have a very effective system by which revenue is generated, and it's predictable over a minimum of a 2-year look back, right? Where you can show even a market volatility, you had the right trajectory. Just like any other business, somebody may buy that business at a fair price that was acceptable to both sides. But much more likely, Nick, you're absolutely right, some sort of skin in the game on both sides would be more appropriate. And certainly that's the process that I've seen successful as well, where there's somewhere between a 3 and a 5 year tail of engagement and activity that's contractually obligated on the part of the seller, so that they're invested back in the business, whether it's a real estate practice or a mortgage practice. So tell us a little bit about what that looks like when what is the initial event? How does that marriage kind of come together? And then how does that wind down happen over time?
Yeah. So depending on the size of the business, and this will kind of dovetail into your second question, which is kind of transitioning, that transition time. That's what we're talking about, whether it's on a team that where one of the leaders of the team is taking over ownership or taking on more and more responsibility and revenue and income. And so I would say that the smaller the business, the quicker it can happen. So if you've got a solo agent that's doing 20 deals a year, you can literally do the announcement. So I asked there's a contract, obviously, which is basically a referral form for the whole database. And it lays out that a minimum of your marketing. I think it's important for both you and the other agent or the buyer or seller to look at their marketing plans and make sure they match up pretty well, and at least have a discussion about what will continue and what won't, if there are differences. The other thing is the timing of it. So the handoff, basically, I asked the retiring agent to call their top people and let them know personally. And I basically say, hey, if anyone got a letter from you saying you're retiring and I'm the new agent, and they were surprised you didn't call them first, call those people first. And for everyone else that, maybe is a great client and they refer people to you, but they don't really engage a lot. You're not best friends. They don't ask you questions. They're not referring tons of people to you. Feel free just to send over the letter and the email explaining you're retiring and who's taking over and why you picked them. And if you go to the Golden Handoff, .com and sign up, you'll get a link basically to the contract, the scripts, the marketing letter, the letter that goes out to clients, all that in editable format. So you could just copy and paste your logo on it, tweak it however you want, change the names and dates, and you're off to the races. Now, the flip side of that is the bigger the business is, the longer that time frame is to transition. And it isn't necessarily because of the retiring agent. The adopting agent. I could take on a pretty big business if I wanted to. It's usually that the retiring agent is kind of phasing out, but they want to keep plugging along for a little bit longer, but only on their best stuff with their favorite people. And if you're talking to someone that's kind of hanging on, but they're phasing out and they're doing less and less and less every year, something that can be a little bit of a wake-up call to them if you're trying to get them to commit before they're done completely, is to remind them that if they've been doing 50 million, 60 million in sales, and now they're doing 40, and next year they're going to do 30, it isn't that their business has shrunk. It's just half of it's being done by some other agent now, right? And they could be getting referral fees and all that and still work with the people they want just by partnering earlier on and having a longer, you called it a tail, having a longer active relationship. And that's actually something that I've been learning more and more about and talking to people more about since the book was published. Because initially, all the businesses I took over were solo agents who we basically went through the process in the book where they call their top clients, they send them a letter, an email, and then I start calling everyone and we onboard all those clients. And then they get all of our marketing. So all the classes, invites, newsletters, calls, all the stuff that we do for our clients, they're basically get added into the list of our past clients, and we treat them the same way. But as I've talked to bigger and bigger teams and agents, the timeline for that transition is different. And so I call that like a partial handoff or a merger. And it could be as simple, like you were talking about, when you're brand new, you want to do everything. As you get better and more experienced and more successful, you can start to say no to things. For most people in real estate, what they say no to first is, showing houses on weekends, and then it's showing houses ever. You focus on the listings, and then you hit a listing person, and now you're focused on business development. For me, I kind of moved into commercial and investment. I'm actually actively right now in a process of a partnership with a team to handle all of our residential business as we kind of grow our commercial and investment division, because that's really where my passion is, and that's where I want to go. So I'm actually going through this process right now using it's funny, I'm using this workbook, and this is my copy, and I've got all my notes in it.
That's awesome.
Spreadsheets, all this stuff. So I'm actually doing it right now. It's kind of funny. I'm using my own workbook to make sure I don't forget a step that I teach. And it's always interesting when you do it yourself. I love it when one of my brokers buys or sells a house and how they get stressed out, because it reminds them how stressful it is for the client and how exciting it is for the client, because we do one a day. It's not as exciting. It's kind of familiar with it. But for our clients, it's like they're riding a really big roller coaster, and it's always good to kind of do what you teach, because it reminds you of the details you overlook and kind of how important it is, or exciting or scary. Or for me, it's been difficult to find someone that wants to take on our business because we have such a big database.
Mm-hmm.
I've had a lot of great agents that I know very well that they're just like, I don't want to get that big. I don't want to have to hire 3 more people, even though I can make an extra $1 million a year. I'm happy making what I'm making with my business as it is.
So Nick, I want to net out a couple things that you said, because I think it's really important. And I'm going to paraphrase this. You can correct me if I misunderstood this. So one of the things that I've heard you say twice now is that you need to make sure that you're aligned with the person that is either buying or selling their business. So if you're buying a business, you want to be sure that you have alignment around their strategy for marketing, how they're acquiring and retaining and marketing to their clients. Because if you're out of alignment with that, your ability to serve the expectations of those clients would be poor, and your ability to maximize that purchase would be a lot less than if you were completely aligned, like same demographic or geographic farm, or same strategy for customer education, whatever it is. So I think that's a really important takeaway for the group to have, is that, if you're going to get married, it should be somebody that has shared values, right?
Yeah, I mean,
go ahead.
like, if your business is all prospecting based and the other person's all referral based, you're going to have different habits, and you're going to have different activities and different outcomes.
Yep.
And it's not that one is right or wrong. It's just, your database is going to have a different value. A referral based business is going to have more enduring value than one that's based on prospecting, because the endorsement will matter more. You've invested more in all the people. But if you be honest with yourself, if you've got a prospecting based business, you don't want to hire a team of referral people, because they're not going to call as much as you, right? And it's not going to work, and they're going to be disappointed, and you're going to be disappointed. Same thing if you have a referral based business and you talk to a team where they're relying on Zillow leads, and they don't want to call people twice a year for 10 years to get a sale, when they've got someone calling them on the phone saying they want to buy a house today, and they're standing on the front porch. So you have to be thoughtful about that. Now, the caveat to that is, don't look for a copy of yourself. What makes you good as a realtor or a lender is not that you're exactly who you are. It's that you're able to adapt to the different personality types of all the clients. And so someone else that will be successful might not have your exact personality makeup, but can adapt themselves to the different client personas. That's what being really good in sales is all about.
Mm-hmm.
There isn't like a specific sales type that works better or doesn't work at all. I know people that don't have the correct disc profile at all, but are incredibly successful because they have other motivations, that they live outside their comfort zone incredibly well. Where I'm a prototypical sales disc profile, like high I, high D. I love to talk. I like people. I like to move really fast. So for me, that part is easy. And managing people and running the business is the part that doesn't bring me a lot of joy, and that I'm not naturally great at, because that takes patience and being slow and teaching and training. And I just want people to go fast from day one. And so I would just say that, yeah, you want to make sure that your values are aligned and that they are going to execute on the marketing plan that has worked for you. 80%. It doesn't have to be exact, but like, again, if you're a referral-based business, you should be talking to someone who's a referral-based business.
And when you're saying that the orientation, you're saying when you're selling your business, make sure that they're the type, they're going to be the type that is going to market the way you marketed. And then similarly, you just invert that for when you're buying a business, buy a business that has similar strategies for acquiring leads and converting leads. So I want to remind the group of because I think it's relevant to this conversation, especially if we're talking about, an incremental handoff of activity. And then I want to touch on something that I thought you said was really interesting, Nick, which is that we believe there's only 5 pillars of activity that a salesperson engages in, whether they're in real estate or in mortgage. And those are the most valuable is leadership. Second most valuable is lead generation, then lead conversion, transaction management, and then the post-closing database activity, right? The work that you do to kind of maintain and return people back into your funnel as convertible leads sometime in the future. And so what I heard you say though, Nick, is that, just like a mortgage professional will slowly move themselves into leadership and lead generation only, a similar thing's happening, but there's nuance to it even in real estate where, you're generating leads and converting leads, but the specific kinds of leads that you're interested in converting, maybe originally they're showings, then they become listings, then they become commercial listings. And your journey has really shown that, you can slowly over time move responsibility to other team members, but continue to earn an income as long as you've identified where your highest and best use is in that process. And then whether it's natural or not, putting team members in place that can, or business partners in place that allow you to continue to monetize the hard work that got you to a place of decision, right? To where you can decide, I'm going to go commercial versus residential, but I'm really good at residential. I'm not going to give up that income.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think, I really like those 5 pillars. I think I would agree with you. Because if you want to be successful and have a business, you have to have leverage, right? Otherwise you're just in sales and you're self-employed. And so that leadership place being the first one, I think is in big picture. I totally agree with that. For me, I just have clarity on what works for us and what our clients expect. And I think just making sure that whoever you partner with has clarity that is how they also do it. But I think you want to get really, really specific. That's why I think like looking at your marketing plan and looking at their marketing plan of exactly what do they do to get business? Where does their business come from? I mean, if you're talking to someone that's trying to buy your business and they don't know where their business comes from, that's a bad sign. Because if you're running a business, you want to know what's working and what's not. It isn't just doing what you've done out of habit. It's doing what you believe works best based on the results you're getting. And for me and my team, it's really about nurturing the people that are already in our database. I've been doing this 16 years and we don't have to cold call. We don't have to go look for new clients. We have to just take care of the people that are there and take care of the people that are referred to us. And then just, obvious opportunities when you are working in a certain market segment or asking for referrals and building your network. Because obviously we have a lot of people that sell property and leave town and then they're not a client anymore and they don't know anyone here. So you're going to have natural attrition. There's nothing wrong with that. So you need to keep growing it, but not at the expense of taking care of the people that are already there that have supported you and already know you and trust you.
Yeah, Nick, that's really well said. And I want to convert something that I just heard you say into an action item for our team that's watching today, that's interested in the process of buying and selling their practice, sometime down the road and the steps that it would take for that. So what I just heard you say is that if you're talking to somebody that wants to sell their business, they don't know where their business comes from. That's a problem. That's a massive red flag. So The takeaway, team, those of you that took time to watch this today or watching the recording, know where your business is coming from. Know how you should be able to today predict based on the number of leads in your database, the amount of activity that you engage in that results in additional leads being generated, your lead conversion percentage. You should be able to predict your next 90 days. And technically, if you are growing your database in a prescriptive way, you should be able to predict the next 18 months of revenue for your business, at least in a way that, you're not going to nail it because market forces are complicated and nuanced, but you can get pretty close if you just look at your behavior. And that's what allows you to authentically go to somebody that's looking to buy businesses and say, hey, this is what you're going to buy. This is the revenue that my activity generates. And I'd like for you to partner up with me on this. And
Yeah.
it starts with you doing the work to create a business that is scalable, predictable, and those two things together make it saleable.
Yeah. Now, you had asked another question. There was a third question there, and I think it was, how do you kind of put it out to the market that you're looking to buy businesses? So if you're in real estate, the number one person you want to be best friends with is your team leader or your managing broker, because they are the, they are the hub of the whole company. And so when people are coming and going, they usually know about it before anyone else. Realtors are always very shy about trying to retire. They always want to keep it a secret, which I think is kind of funny, because I always joke that all of our clients think we're all retired already. That all you're doing every day is reminding them you're still in business, you're still here to help them. And so talking to, your leadership at your brokerage is going to be the first step, because the people there already know you. It's going to be easier to transition. And then it's really about outreach. Like anything, I think sellers of businesses are like a seller of a home. Sometimes you call someone and they're ready to go. And sometimes they say, call me in 6 years when our last kid graduates from high school and we're going to downsize or we're going to move out. We've got this big house in the most expensive school district. And when the kids are all out of here, we don't want to keep paying these property taxes and have this big empty house. We want to get a condo downtown and travel. So it's the same thing with realtors or with mortgage people, anyone that's running a business. They have different time horizons for when they want to exit and when they're going to be a real seller. And so in that interim, you want to treat them just like your sellers in your database. You want to basically keep nurturing them, stay in touch, stay engaged. And as you take over businesses and you have success, share that success with those people. Right? You should segment your database to the point where, I can go into our database and pull up a list of agents that are potential retiring agents. And so it'd be really easy for me to pull up a list of 100 people and go, hey, I just took over so-and-so's business. And, here's what they have to say. We're 6 months in and here's their report from, Key West. They're down there, retired. They love it. And they just bought a boat with a referral fees I sent them. And here's the picture of their boat. And here's what they have to say about their experience so far. So share those testimonials, because you telling the world how great you are is sales, but a testimonial matters a lot more. And if you're doing a good job, those people should all be big fans. And then those become like your best clients, because what other clients do you have that are going to refer you 200, 300, 400 people, right? And when someone retires and they refer their database, that's what they're doing. They're referring a whole business to you, and it's incredibly valuable.
So Nick, I'm going to take a slight pivot, because I think there's something really interesting that you said that's semi-related to this that I want the audience to kind of net out from this. You were talking about the transitioning or the retiring agent, and this is my experience also with transitioning and retiring mortgage professionals, is that where there starts to be resistance is when they realize that there's a segment of their database that they still want to engage with, right? That's like, it's if they had infinite, it's like the magic wand exercise, right? Like if they had a magic wand and they could change how they engage with their life and business, like what would that look like? And most people would say, well, I only want to deal with people that have a high return on energy for me.
Sure.
Because I can work with them forever. It's not a drain. And in fact, I end my day more energized than before I met with that person and engage with them. And so they look at their database and they say, well, who does that for me? And I'd like to kind of carve that out as my little segment of business that I want to continue to focus on. What I'd like to offer, team, is that while it's not an easy choice to make, an easy decision to make, you can do some of that pruning of your database today. You don't have to wait until you're retired to have a great life. You don't have to wait until you're retired to work with people that you want to work with. And I can't guarantee it for your business in particular, but I can say that my personal experience with this and those people that I've seen do it, when they prune their business from those energy vampires and they start to focus on the things that truly give them fulfillment and give them energy, their business flourishes. It blossoms because they have more gas in the tank, right? If you think about the currencies that you have in your life, you have money, time, and energy, right? In that order. If you have money with no time or energy, you're screwed. If you have money and time but no energy, you're screwed. You got to have all three things in order to really have the kind of fulfillment that you are trying to design for yourself. So that was just, Nick, a really interesting takeaway. And hopefully that pivot was valuable to all of you that are watching, but definitely advocate for doing some work on curating your database and making sure that you get rid of those energy vampires before you retire, not after.
Yeah, I mean, there's certainly, we review probably monthly the team. They'll call someone that's just absolutely horrible to them, or that just doesn't need us anymore, which happens. Oh, I moved to Texas and I'm never moving back to Oregon, and they don't have any friends or family here that are still here. We don't need to bug them with our newsletter about Portland real estate, and we don't need to keep asking them questions. So I think there's the obvious, like, no reason to be in touch, even if they're nice people, because they don't need you and you don't need them. And that's fine. I mean, you could be friends, but you don't want to be, it's not a business relationship. And then there's people that you can make money on. I remember the first client I fired was a really active investor in the first upcycle, and they were super aggressive. And I was working my butt off for them. And I said, hey, and they kept wanting to make low offers on properties. And, everyone would get 10 or 20 offers and we'd lose over and over and over. And they got a couple properties that I helped them buy. And it was because it was the only ones they listened to my advice on. And they called me about listing one of them back. And I think I helped them buy it for 500 and they were going to list it for 8. And I had to heart to heart. And I said, I appreciate you guys have a lot of big goals and you really have an aggressive stance. But, when you yell at me, it makes me not want to answer the phone or work with you guys. I'm busting my butt for you guys. And if you feel like I'm not doing my job, please tell me. But losing your temper every time we talk because the seller's an idiot and they should take my offer. I'm like, man, I'm telling you, they're not going to take your offer because someone offered 80 grand more than you. And the terms are exactly the same. So there's no amount of me being a sales professional that's going to win this deal for you. And they're like, oh no, we like to push everyone. Thanks for, standing up to us. We respect you more. But then like a week later, they were still doing it. And I was like, okay, guys, I appreciate you want to have me list this house for you, but I can't do it. And, we talked about our relationship and it's the same thing. And I'm going to have to refer you to someone else. They're like, oh, we know tons of agents. If you don't want it, we've got other agents. I'm like, all right, good luck. and it was like, and that was a big deal to me at the time. I mean, that would have been I don't know if it would have been the biggest commission, but it would have been up there. And it took a lot. One of my mentors had advised me to, and I say this to everyone, if you get kicked in the shins on a deal, like you kind of get screwed out of something that you've done everything right on and it just doesn't work out because the deal goes south on its own or the client goes south, or if you have a client like that, that's like you said, a vampire, and you let them go find someone that's a better fit. Not only does it make your life a lot more enjoyable and your work a lot more enjoyable, but I really do believe that new people and new business will show up in that space that's going to be way better than what you gave up. It's really incredibly rare that if ever, that giving up something like that isn't going to lead to something better showing up. And even if it doesn't, just for your sanity, it's worth it. But I think even from a business standpoint, I think it's a net positive because the space and the energy you get back, like you said, by working with people that give you energy as opposed to take it away. We have a handful of clients I can think of on the top of my head that we have an amazing relationship, like incredibly high level of trust. They appreciate working with us. They want us to get paid. They want us to be successful. It isn't about trying to save a penny on everything because, they ask a lot of us and we deliver and they want us to get paid well for it. And they want us to call them first every time we've got a great deal. And there's a couple of people where we do multiple transactions every single year. And I love talking to them, talking about the market, talking about life. They're in different ways mentors to me where I learn something every time I meet with them and talk to them because they're, absolutely laser focused in their specialty. And whenever someone's like that, you always learn something from them. And so I think that's great advice.
Yeah, Nick, I'm going to pivot back to the what I think is the last question that was shared that I think will probably take us into the tail of this. But I want to just reinforce what you said there because I really want the audience to hear this because it's so hard, right? It's so hard to give up, $20,000+ commission.
Yeah.
It's hard to do that. But it's the right thing to be self-honoring is the term that I like to use. Right.
Sure.
And knowing that when you're showing up as the best version of yourself, which is exactly what you will do when you have that energy back, good things happen, whether they're monetary or otherwise, right? So, but having the faith in yourself and the belief in yourself to know that you can make that call, it takes a rare person, Nick. So congratulations on doing that, because it's hard to do. And hopefully your story gives somebody watching this the inspiration to go and fire an energy vampire from their life today. So they can come back and share what that meant for them, downstream. Because I like you, I believe it's going to only result in good things.
Yeah.
So going into the last question, and this is, I think there's a lot of people that'll watch this, that this is really the number one question they have, which is, where do you start? Can you give the first 3 steps that people should be thinking through to prepare themselves for selling their business, and then the first 3 steps to prepare for buying a business? I think you touched on some of them, but I'd like to just crystallize it into a process that the team watching can take away and actually take action on.
Yeah, so I'd say for either side of the fence, buying or selling, read the book, The Golden Handoff. It's a quick read. It's on Audible too, if you like to listen to your car when you're driving. It's not long. It's meant to be really the bullet points on how to execute this. And there's no secret stuff that isn't in the book. It's all in there. If you follow it, it should give you like the step-by-step plan to how to do it. If you're selling your business, read the book and understand kind of the process. Your next step is curate your database. So make sure your database is updated and you've touched base with all those people. And like you said, maybe prune out the stuff where there is an opportunity there, or people, aren't the best clients or the energy vampires. You don't want to pass it along. And then the third step, if you're retiring, is write down a list of 5 agents you think you would like to have take over your business and reach out to them. You're going to be surprised that a lot of them are too busy and they just don't want to do it. So it's going to take some time. When I was looking at mine, our businesses, we're one of the top teams in Portland. So, there's only 20 people I think that could pull it off at all. And then of those, I knew a handful of them weren't the right fit. So I called about 15 people that I knew personally. And I asked for referrals for people that I didn't know personally, that maybe were newer to the market or I hadn't dealt with. And we kind of got that down to the last final 3 that we were interested in working with. If you're growing your business, again, start with the book to understand the process so you can explain it to people, because you're going to have to explain it to a lot of retiring agents. It's still not widely known, which is good because you're not competing with a ton of other agents if you're doing this. And I would say write down a list of 5 agents whose businesses you admire, that you would love to own their businesses, either because they're complementary to yours, maybe because of, maybe you specialize in a certain area or a certain property type, and there's a couple other people that are really dominant in that space. You're a natural fit for them and they're a natural fit for you. And so just, write down the list of those things. And then what I recommend is just call them up and say, hey, I've always really admired your business and you as a realtor, and I'm just curious, what's your plan when you're done selling? And that's a really good conversation starter. It's really simple. The big question I get from people that want to do this is, well, I want to do this, but I don't want people to be offended. And I'm like, they're not going to be offended. You have to approach it the right way. You don't call them up and say, hey, when are you retiring? You've been doing this too long. You're tired. You're burned out. That's not where you start. So just ask them, hey, I've always admired your business and I'm curious what your plans are when you're done selling. And I'd love to talk to you about that. Oh, by the way, have you heard about this process, this book called The Golden Handoff, where you can have someone take over when you're done and make referral fees without doing anything? Would that be interesting to you? And it's honestly, it's a pretty easy sale when you're buying businesses, because most agents are planning to do nothing and they're going to get $0 for it. And so when you can show them a path that's easy to make a lot of money doing nothing with something they already own, it's kind of like explaining to someone that old junker car in their garage is actually worth a lot of money. It's a collector item now. And they didn't know that, it's like an asset they don't even know they have. So I would encourage everyone to, whatever side you're on, get more familiar with the process. Thanks for being on this call and listening to this and learning learn a little bit of it. If you're down in San Diego for the NER convention, I'll be presenting in person, which I'm excited about. Finally doing some in-person stuff again. So I'm going to go get some sunshine and present down there. If anyone's—
What are the dates of that, Nick?
That is November. Let me look here. I want to say should know what day I'm doing it. I think I'm November 10:30, November 12th, which is Friday. And depending on if you're in kind of the organizational side of NAR, if you're going just as a realtor, there's different dates. Basically, I want to say it's the 11th through the 14th. It might start a little earlier than that, just because I think there's some governmental stuff within NAR that happens before that. But I think that the stuff for the agents, I think, is really Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Great.
Yeah. So they're doing a hybrid deal where it's you could do it online or in person. So I think a lot of people are going to be doing that forever, just because some people love traveling and seeing people in person, and some people are too busy and just want to get the information and go back home and make dinner for their kids and sleep in their own bed. So
yeah, I hear that. So Nick, for the benefit of those mortgage professionals, the process that we advocate for is a little bit more organic, where the mortgage professional does a handoff to kind of an internal senior team member versus kind of selling it to a practitioner, like a senior practitioner that might be kind of in their sphere of influence. Do you see any success on the real estate side of kind of organically growing that partnership, or doing a handoff to like I can see, and I don't know, much outside of what you've shared on this call, but a path where you could have created just divisions of your enterprise, right? Nick Krautter Inc. And promoted a VP of retail or
residential,
residential, and and kind of operated like VP of listings and
sure.
showings, and just built out an infrastructure in lieu of looking for a sale. So what are the pros and cons of the approach that you took versus that?
Yeah. So I think that if you've got, here's the first thing. There's a difference between people that are good at sales and people that are good at leadership. So you could potentially have a really great team of great salespeople, but no one really wants to be in a leadership role or is going to be successful in a leadership role. And so when you look to join, and the other thing you're assuming is that everyone has a team, and most people are solo mortgage brokers or with processors that are really employees of the company, or they're agents who are solo agents, and they use some of the support staff that are really employees of the brokerage, but they're not really their team. So first of all, 80% of the people, 90% are solo to begin with, that don't have that team to even consider that. Of the people that have those teams, I think the biggest ones usually do internal. And a lot of times it's like family, like parent to child, or someone else where there's a deeper relationship than just a working relationship, but they also work together, and then those folks take over. So I see quite a bit of that. And I think that if you have someone that is really gung-ho and wants to take over leadership that's already internal, that your clients already know, that is the best way to go. For me, it was just about, I don't have enough people in the residential team that I have someone that wants to be in a leadership role where they want to take over the business and take responsibility for all the stuff that I'm still doing. And so for me, it was a matter of finding a team where they already have that infrastructure built out bigger for that part of the business. And so we're talking to a group that's pretty similar in size to us in production, and it's referral based. So it's a good fit culturally for our staff and people, and also for our clients.
Well, Nick, that's great to hear, because, and that resonates with me, that, the process that I've seen be successful in the mortgage space, where there's far less in my awareness, there's far less buying and selling of businesses in the mortgage space than I'm aware of in the real estate space. It just really hasn't caught on yet. Although I think it's a phenomenal opportunity that, if properly systematized on the part of the seller, right, which is where art of homeownership, that's why we're having this conversation in connection with art of homeownership, is that in our opinion, step one of selling a mortgage practice is to create very predictable revenues.
Yeah.
And that requires a very systematized approach to your database management, where not only do you have a way to engage those past clients, but you have things of value to bring to them. The Real Estate Wealth Digest, the Perfect Mortgage Promise, the annual financial review, things that are very, very tangible, that translate to a why. Like, why do I need to engage with you 3 years from now? Well, it's because I'm going to make you a more successful homeowner in these precise ways. And that why becomes the predictability of revenue and of future transactions that then translates into a saleable business. So, step one is figuring out how to make that piece happen, which in a mortgage practice, because like you kind of highlighted the fact that, you get paid differently in mortgage than you do in real estate. The propensity for team building, you're right. It's, 80% of sole practitioners versus, people that are either having a mature team or on the path to a mature team. I'll speak maybe in a, just from a biased place. I don't believe that it'll be possible to run a mortgage practice without a team in the future, just because the process of generating sufficient revenue requires more transactions. You have to be unit driven, which means you have to have the infrastructure to drive those units. And that will naturally, I think, evolve into the possibility, not the guarantee, but the possibility of emerging leadership, especially if you're intentional about it. And you say, hey, 5 years from now, I want to be in a place where I'm making 25% of the revenue, but only engaging with my database 4 times a year and at the holiday party. And here's what that looks like. And here's who's going to take over, right? That 5-year journey of handing off to that team that you're developing to ensure that you have the right unit count to have an effective income stream. I think that there's a good path for that in mortgage, which is why that's kind of how we typically advocate for it. Although I'm going to do a little bit of brainstorming, Nick, over this next week or two to think about how, acquiring sole practitioners business and mortgage could be effective. I think it'll be a little bit trickier than in real estate for the reasons that you described, but certainly there's a path there if we put our heads together.
I think you just bring them into the company, call them an employee, put them on a base, and then you just take all the overage, right?
Yeah.
About how that would work.
Yeah, you do essentially effectively you do a rev share. If you think about the values of those pillars, right? Leadership, lead generation, lead conversion, you're basically saying, here's how much lead generation is worth. It's worth this much, and here's how much minimal engagement in a client for life strategy as the prior owner of this database would look like, whether it's, taking a picture for the newsletter or coming to the client appreciation party once a year. You figure out valuing those two aspects, because you're no longer going to be leading. You're no longer going to be converting the leads. You're just doing these two jobs, and you're going to even wind those down over time. Here's what that's worth. And then you just express that in a contract, and now you have a sold business.
So you figured it out already.
Yeah. Yeah. The art of homeownership succession planning was really originally oriented towards mortgage practitioners, because kind of to your point, Nick, right? You held up that, the Golden Handoff workbook, right? The original founders of Art of Homeownership are actively engaged in building a mortgage team, right?
Yeah.
They're doing it every day. And really the platform was originally built for them to do better business, and was shared because it's so urgent, in the real estate and mortgage industries, for us as collectively to add more value to our clients and to do that in a way that's very tangible and very easy to articulate.
I love it. Yeah, I totally agree with you.
Well, Nick, I want to just sincerely share my personal appreciation, and the appreciation of the entire Art of Homeownership family here for you to come and share with us today. This has been absolutely awesome. If you haven't done so already, jump on Amazon or on Audible, pick up Golden Handoff, read it or listen to it. It sounds like there's a phenomenal opportunity here for you to, if this is your first year in mortgage or real estate, or if it's your 25th year in mortgage or real estate, there's lessons to be learned there that you can start applying today that will allow you to continue to earn income even after you step out of your business, which is exactly what we've all, I think, again, that idea of succession planning is aspirational, but it's very possible, and it's accessible if you follow the plan.
I love it. Yeah. Thanks.
Cheers, Nick. Thank you so much. Have a